I can probably project. How are you doing in the back row there? I mean, this feels like we're about 15 feet away, so that should work. Well, let's talk about phones. Sound good? The easiest part of your life, right? It's low conflict, no problems. I'm sure you just absolutely agree with your kids about phones the entire time. Raise your hand if you have a kid in elementary school. Okay, raise your hand if you have a kid in high school, junior high. Raise your hand if you have both at the same time right now. Okay, cool. And raise your hand if your kid has a phone already. What's that sort of mean?
No data plan, no calling abilities, but
They can talk to people, which is what they don't want to do, right? So yeah, so we'll talk about that. And it is phones are the biggest pain point right now. So I will talk about it today. You will have a plan after today, multiple different levels, and really 4 of the most important conversations you can have with your kid. I'll also make a recommendation for a good kids first phone, because there's so much pain in the marketplace that there's a handful of different phone options that you could go with, but you know what they want. They want that iPhone. You know what I'm saying? So it's Christmas. Christmas is coming up. So just go buy them $1,000 phone and put it in their stocking, right? That's exactly so they can keep it in their locker all day at ECA, right? And it's so hard to be a school to figure out how to partner with parents in this space. So what I'll do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about Axis and the context that your kids are living in, and then we'll go from there to talk about phones. Does that work for you? And then there's going to be a lot of discussion. And if you have a question at any point, just ask, because I don't want to lecture. Does that work? Yes. Oh, so you're just waving at a friend. Oh, I thought you were going to ask a question. You raise the hand every time. You're like, me. Okay. Axis was founded 18 years ago. We're from Colorado Springs, so we have an office in Old Colorado City. So I just drove 20 minutes over here, and I live in the old north end, so north of the hospital. So I could walk to the ER, which is really great for little kids who have allergies. So we're there every now and then. Axis just means what's at the center of your family, what's at the center of your life. We want Jesus to be at the center of families. So we're going to talk about your kids today. We're going to talk about your kids and the pocket rectangles that they want or have and getting that right balance. But I want to start off and see how well you're paying attention. So I'm going to start with an awareness test. And I know this isn't the brightest screen, but I want to see if you can figure out this riddle.
This is an awareness test.
Pay attention.
How many passes does the team in white make?
What's the answer?
The answer is 13.
13.
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Right, it's easy to miss something you're not looking for. So what's the purpose of a phone? Communication. Then why are we lonelier than ever before with these things? Why did John Haidt write a book this year about how it's crushing for especially young women, and when it comes to social media and self-image and anxiety and depression, but also challenging for men. So here's this device that's supposed to connect us, but then this moonwalking bear slips in, and all of a sudden we're having mental health conversations more than ever before. So here's your first question for your table. Turn to your neighbor. I want you to answer this. I'll give you like a minute. I'll play some music. What challenges do parents and their teens face now more than ever? Go. Communicating's hard. Connection. What do you mean by connection?
Connection within our family.
What do you mean by connection within your family?
My kid would rather go hole up in his room by himself than spend time with the family.
Right. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Over here.
I said focus.
Focus.
Focusing on a task. Homework, whether that be homework, chores.
Homework, chores. Yeah.
Or it's that short time span, their attention span goes from being like a normal person's to like.
I'm just glad that I have a great attention span, and I'm sure all of us adults here too are not addicted to. I mean, we're just so much superior than that. No, but I'm kidding. No, you're right.
If you knew me, you would say, yeah, that would not be the case.
No, yeah. By the way, with this the awareness test thing, I forgot to say this. I'm playing a big trick on you for this entire presentation. So I want to see if someone can notice, like 45 minutes from now, what trick I'm playing on you. So I want to see if you're paying attention for the awareness test. Someone in the back was going to say something about a challenge face. Yes.
I think teens go to Google or a digital resource for wisdom before conferring with parents. Maybe they're getting their main source of information from strangers.
The smartphone's the new parent, right? The smartphone's the new university. The smartphone's the new school. So yeah, those are presented. We asked 1,500 parents in a giant survey that was even international as well. About 15% of the responses were international outside the U.S. We said, what challenges do you face now more than ever? And these are the top 5 things. It said social media, culture, screen time, mental health, sexuality, and gender. They're just like, these are hard conversations. We want help with these. We don't really know where to go with them. And so let's just take a little tour for each of these as we enter into the land of Gen Z, and then we'll talk about phones. So social media, there's always a new app that's out there. I had a dad say, he's like, I always feel 3 apps behind my kids. And then when you're in that new app, there's a new dance typically. And I'm sorry, the screen is a little washed out, but we're doing the best we can. There's usually a new filter, and then there's usually a new meme. This is Skibbity Toilet. Have you ever heard any of your kids say, what the Skibbity? So this is going to be, these are like surveillance. These are like suits with surveillance cameras on, and they're about to go to war with some toilet people. And so and then I actually think it's kind of funny because did you guys see Tesla's announcement about the Optimus robot? Kind of reminds me of Skibbity Toilet right there. So so it's coming real in life. And the Skibbity Toilet was like billions of views. It's not small. Billions and billions and billions of views. Culture. With culture, there's always new slang. So I had a kid in my youth group. I was a youth pastor for a little bit, about 4 years ago. I'm definitely full-time with Access, but it's part-time. And Harper said, I totally catfished that guy. And I was like, is that like funny? Is that sexual? Is that gross? Like, what does it mean? So catfish means to misrepresent yourself online as someone like different. So it's typically a term used for men who groom young children. So like you're saying I'm a 17-year-old girl when you're really like a 45-year-old man. Harper went to a swim meet. Some boy got her number. The boy asked her for nude photos. She catfished him by responding back to him and said, I'm a 43-year-old man. Why are you asking me for nude photos? So this was an instance where she catfished someone with wisdom. But I didn't know what the slang was, so I couldn't laugh or say that was great or like, what does that feel like or what's going on? So there's always new slang. If you go to access.org, you can actually get our Parents Guide to Teen Slang. However, Katie printed this off for you all. So you all have, this has had over 700,000 like uses this last year for us. So, I mean, read this to your kid. They'll think it's very inappropriate and funny, and some of it's lighthearted and some of it's heavy. But yeah, there's always new slang. So where's Katie? Thank you, Katie, for printing this off. So, okay. Then there's screen time. And so here's the big question with screen time. When should I get my kid a smartphone? Right? 45 years old? We'll talk about this later, and I will give you the definitive answer. And the definitive answer is that this is a trick question. It assumes 2 things that are not true. And so you have to understand both of those 2 things as you approach the smartphone. But you're like, when should I get my kid a smartphone? Then you're like, okay, we decided. And then it's like, well, which smartphone am I going to get them? And so it's like up there it would say an old iPhone or an Apple Watch or a Pinwheel phone or a Trumi phone or a Wise phone or a Light phone or a Flip phone. And then what about Bark or Canopy, Custodio or Circle or Covenant Eyes or different routers or Google Family Link or Screen Time? How am I supposed to learn all this stuff? I'm not an IT professional. And what? Guess what? Having a kid live in your home is like having it's like having a tech advice person at home, right? Yeah. So tech help. So if you're going to outsmart your kid, you are going to lose. So you have to recruit them to be on your team and not be adversaries with it. So there's a lot of different options. I think our current favorite like third-party phone is the pinwheel phone. And it probably works for like if you wanted to get your kid a phone younger. So 11 or 12 or 13. 14, 15, or 16, they're going to be like, Mom, this is such a dorky phone. They'll be like, I'm being made fun of for having a little kid phone. I also think there's a great start with an Apple Watch as well, because there's just certain things you can't see on that, but it kind of has some, if you remember your first car and if you were embarrassed by it, and just whether you were or not, or should have or shouldn't have been, or it would have been nice. I grew up in Texas. It'd be nice if I started off with a truck, but I had a little Toyota Corolla and I was embarrassed, but my dad bought me a $2,000 car. It was his car, don't worry. But, there's like some social currency with it. Just empathize with. We have what we call the Everything Smartphone charter and kit. We've printed this off, but this is something you can sign up for at Access. Everything at Access is completely free, because we have families who donate to make Access resources free. That's why we're able to serve 400,000 parents and their 800,000 teenagers. But this will be a deep dive on what I'm talking about today. Then mental health. Man, just brand new conversations. I didn't know what the word anxiety meant until I was in college. And now kids can just hop on TikTok and self-diagnose and be like, I have ADHD, or I have, autism is a big conversation. You wouldn't think that would be a self-diagnosing piece, but from TikTok and a lot of different things. And then you have here, you got Morgan Wall on the left, you got Noah Kahn on the right. It's not unusual for musicians to sing about substance abuse or depression or anxiety or self-medication. And then finally, you might not be able to see it here, but these are furries. And so the sexuality and gender conversation is just like, there's a lot of things to talk about. When we were kids, we all knew what we were and who we were attracted to. And now you have to choose who you are and who you're attracted to. And then when it comes to sexuality and gender, there's a lot of different emojis. These are all very inappropriate emojis. If I were to put this in front of your students, they would be laughing right now. You can ask, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you later. But so now I made the screen black. We just talked about all these different challenges, this constellation of issues. And if you're starting to feel a little tension in your chest over this, or like what's going on, or I just wish it wasn't this way. Why can't we go back to the good old days? If I love Ecclesiastes, I think Ecclesiastes 6 or 7, it says, Solomon says, do not say, remember the good old days. He says, that is not wise. And then he moves on. God has given you your kid in 2024, soon to be 2025. You have what it takes. The school is here to partner with you. Access is here to support you. And when you see all this stuff going on, it can feel like, oh man, how can I ever stay on top of it? I just want you to know that there is one voice that is louder than any of these voices. There's one voice that's more influential, more unstoppable, more irreplaceable than any of this stuff that's going to be than the onions on TikTok, that we talked about in the Culture Translator today. And that person is you. Parents, you are the hero. Parents, you are the most influential person in the life of your kid. And I'm not just saying that inspirationally. I mean, theologically it's true, but it's also sociologically true. And so here's some fine print. Christian Smith, University of Notre Dame, 20-year study. He says, parents exert far and away the greatest influence. The empirical evidence is clear. No other institution comes close, not churches or youth groups or faith-based schools or mission trips or summer camps or Sunday school or youth ministers or anything else. What makes every other influence pale into virtual insignificance is the importance of the religious beliefs and practices of parents. So even though it doesn't feel true, and even though sometimes in high school it's going to be really hard and you're going to go recruit a really cool 21-year-old to hang out with your kid, because they're going to be saying the same thing you say to them, and they're going to be repeating it back to you, but it's going to be from that 21-year-old. And you're going to be like, how's this work? You are unstoppable in the life of your kid. And you're going to have a 50-year relationship. And yeah, this school's great. Hire them to help you. right? They're here, they're in your corner, but it is true that there is no one more influential than you in the life of your kid. And this is what's cool. Your school and also Axis, what are we? We're your research assistant. We're your back office to help you know what's going on in your kid's life. So we do something we call culture translation at Axis, and it just means if C.S. Lewis and MTV, if they made a baby, they would name their baby Axis. And so we're always looking at the timeless truth of great theologians and philosophers, but also saying what's going on in the world now. We have a resource called the Culture Translator on our website. It's completely free. It comes out on Friday and says, here are 3 things going on in the life of your kid. Your kid will think you're an absolute ninja if you sign up for this thing, because you're going to know the new slang or the new artist or what's going on. And it's going to provoke a non-anxious conversation that's gospel-centered with your kid. And the reason we created this is because we had a young lady say to us, she says, I've only had one real conversation with my dad. And it's like, wow, I mean, I thought parents are the most influential person in life for their kids. Only one real conversation. And her dad was a pastor, and her dad was a Christian university president for 2 decades, and he is also on the Axis board. And we're like, oh man, that's not good. So, that's a little bit about Axis, a little bit about why you are awesome, let's talk about smartphones now, so that you don't just have one conversation with your kids. So let's start the smartphone conversation. I'm going to say these are the 4 biggest conversations you can have with your kid. And you know what? I'll do that. There's words on the top of the screen that you can't even see right now but it says gospel, and then it says what is it for, driver's ed, and trust. So I'll adjust the brightness here in a second. So if you're a smartphone family and you're having these conversations with your kid, let's talk about what it's like to be a smartphone family. And I love this quote. This quote is from a PhD named Kurt Thompson, who specializes in neuroscience and the neuroscience of attachment theory. And he's a Christian. And he says this of little kids and parents who have little kids. So think back to that brand fresh new baby, your 14-year-old now, when they were 1 week old or even younger. Everyone is born looking for someone looking for them. That baby is looking for mama. That mama is looking for her baby. They're looking to connect, to be held, to be understood, to be attuned. And so when Shiloh was born, Shiloh's 12, I just remember feeling like I fell in love again. It was like this weird kind of feeling of just like, I love this. I mean, it took me a little while to warm up to it because birth, watching your wife go through birth is travail. And you're like, what is this? Like, this is so incredible. But it did feel to me, having a child feels like falling in love. I'll also say this is true. Having a child feels like falling in debt. Can I get an amen? Okay. Guess how much it costs? The cost to raise one kid for 17 years in the United States of America, including inflation from the United States Department of Agriculture, how much? $200,000. $350,000. So it is $310,605. This does not include private education. So, and then that's just one kid. So if you have 2 kids, you're in the $600,000 club. And I don't think there's an economy of scale with kids, really. I mean, they just, so 3 kids, you're in $900,000. Anybody have 4 kids? $1 million club. There you go, $1 million. It's good work if you can get it, but it's right there. Okay, so, and part of this is that you might be spending money on phones, right? So here's my question for you. Do you fight or disagree about your family's devices? How often? I'll play some music. 3, 2, 1, go. Attention in this spot. You are not alone. It's completely normal. And actually, there's a lot of videos online of parents making total war with their kids' devices. And honestly, it's cheaper than therapy. So we're going to watch a video right now.
Well, did you find it? You didn't hear anything I just said. I'm so sick of it. This is what I'm talking about. You and this freaking phone all the time. Give me it. Do it. Give me it now. No, that's it. I had enough. What are you doing? What are you doing? Give me one reason why I shouldn't do this in the book. I have to text people back. Why? Because I have to. No, that's it. No. Oh my God. Stop filming. I hate you! What? Man, you're calling it for like 10
minutes. What are you doing? PS3 again? Hey, you burned up all the data on the phone.
I didn't.
Yeah, you did. No, I can track all the phones, and well, you did it.
Oh, I did it.
Yeah, 85% of all the data was just you. Give me the phone.
No.
Yes, give me the phone. I told you burned it up again. You burned it up last month, and we barely went over. This time we're over. We got 10 days left to go. Give me the phone.
I did not burn it up.
Give me the phone.
No. I did not burn it.
Yeah, you did.
I did.
Give me the phone.
I didn't burn it up.
Yeah, you did. No, you're not getting it. I already told you. If you burn it up, you're done.
No.
Sit down. There.
So in the first video is a mom with the daughter, and there's a swimming pool there. I provided you a very expensive swimming pool, and here you are on your phone. And this is a dad in probably his man cave, surrounded by pool and pinball and video games, and his kids on the phone. And so there's just so much intensity around this that this dad would just take it and just smash it right there. And it's like some other kid is filming it, right? So again, there's a lot of intensity around it. So here are the 4 conversations. Gospel, what is it for? Driver's ed, and trust. So let's start with this idea of gospel. We're at a Christian school, an evangelical Christian school, ECA. So what's this idea of the gospel? The gospel is that God made the world very good. It became cursed, and then he's redeeming it. Now, how does this matter? This matters when we're talking about phones with our kids. You can talk about a phone as just like something that's been created. It's a neutral thing. But no, it's not neutral. It's in a world that God runs. It's in a world that God really cares about. So when God made the world, he made it very good. And then even in Genesis, he's like, it's good, 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 good. And he says, behold, it's very good. And then he says, hey, it's so good. Here's all these animals. Why don't you go name the animals? Now imagine if Steve Jobs made an iPhone, spent $1 billion to make it, and said, hey, why don't you name it? No, when you create something, you name it. But God is inviting us into it. Imagine if Elon creates a self-driving car. He names it. He doesn't say, I want someone else to name it. When you make something, you name it. But God is inviting us into the creative process. And it could have gotten a little crazy if he let, Adam and Eve name the animals, and maybe they named them some weird stuff, kind of like this.
Many animals. One type of animal is a bird, and some are wild, like the beach chicken, formal chicken, freedom glider, fancy butt, and the pantless thunderbirds. Birds also make good pets, like lovebirds, or a mohawk, or a bouncy bird. There's also Photoshop birds, like birds with arms, birds with no legs, and when a doggo and a bird come together, that's a dird. Heckin' rare. Another animal is a snake. Some snakes are friendly pets and might even be snazzy, or be a scrunchy, or go for walks. Other snakes are much venom. Don't heck around with a danger noodle, or a note rope, or a slippery tube dude. If it's not a bird, snake, doggo, or a catto, it's some other animal, and some of the other animals are aqua animals, like the panda whale, sea flat, the floating potato, and the American murder log. Some other animals are land animals. Chief of all is a wizard cow. There's also the danger zebra, flop wop, tree floof. Here's a tired tree floof. Stab rabbit, giraffe sheep, and last but not least, the fart squirrel.
When I spoke to 6th graders in the past, after I showed this, it was really hard to remain. Their day was made, their week was made. Okay, so God invites us in to co-sign the checks of creation with him. And part of that, and I love this scripture, it's from Proverbs 25. I got my degree in mechanical engineering. My toughest professor was Dr. Roger Gonzalez. He's a Christian professor, and he had this verse on his door. It is the glory of God to conceal things, but it's the glory of kings to search them out. It's the idea that God made a world full of potential, maybe full of silicon, right? Full of atoms, full of material, but there wasn't like an iPhone tree. You know what I'm saying? It was raw materials that said, you guys go figure it out. Go be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, figure out my very, 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 very good world. And not only that, it's the glory of kings, it's the glory of queens to be able to discover what's going on in this world. So when we start off with a smartphone, it's easy to be like, oh, it's so much pressure, or man, what my kid can look at porn on this, or what's this book say over here about anxiety, the anxious generation. Top seller this year, big conversations from this sociologist, this atheistic Jewish sociologist, Jonathan Haidt. I would say as Christians, let's step back and just start off with a sense of wonder and say, is it not a miracle that I can pick up a rectangle and call someone 800 miles away, that I can get directions? And so to help us understand the glory of the smartphone, this little video will help us understand just the glory of the pencil.
Look at this lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. This black center, we call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen with the help of the British government. This brass ferrule, I haven't the slightest idea where it came from, or the yellow paint, or the paint that made the black lines, or the glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to the store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people.
The glory of the pencil. Now let's just take it up a few notches. The glory of the smartphone. Turn to your neighbor and answer this question. What do you love about your phone? What's awesome about it? What do you hate about your phone, or how it makes you feel?
The control it has.
The control. Keep going. What do you mean by that? Control of what?
Everything that's on it takes time to control your actions and alerts.
Yeah. That addiction. I heard addiction. Anybody say addiction? And so it's like we're like, oh, our kids are addicted to their phones. We're addicted to our phones. Mom and dad, we're addicted to the phone. The idea of you go to a restaurant and dad's on his email and mom's on Pinterest and the kid's playing a game and they're just sitting there waiting for their food, and it's just that's the power of this device in our life. And so there's things where when you look at Genesis, in Genesis 3, it talks about, hey, this very good world became broken then. And so things got messed up and they got turned upside down. And so all of a sudden you have this face plant on reality. So we're not atheists. We're not in a world that's just randomly happened and this phone is just a random part of it. No, we're Christians who said this is a world that's really awesome, and that really awesome thing sometimes becomes messed up. And so, again, I'm talking about the philosophy of the phone and to have that compassion. Another thing is just think about you at 14 and if you had a phone at 14 and what you were into, and remember those hormones just flushing through your body at that time and all the things. And it's just, what would you be like with that phone? It's just hard. It's to have that compassion for our kids. So the point is we have something that's very good and it just becomes kind of upside down. It's kind of like a face plant. It's kind of like these face plant videos. Or here's the greatest one of all time right here. One more time. So that's what the phone is for us. As Keller would say, it is the normal state of the human heart to try to build its identity around something besides God. And if you try to put anything in a place that was originally made for God, it is going to be too small. It's going to rattle around in there. Or Brene Brown says we're the most in-debt, obese, addicted, and medicated adult cohort in U.S. history. So it's this idea of here we have this amazing device, incredible device, and there's plenty of ways to mess it up. And again, this is the conversation you're inviting your kid into as you get them a phone and what level you get them a phone. And then the gospel also goes on to say, yes, God made the world very good. It became cursed, and Jesus came to redeem it. And so you have these wonderful rewords like to reconcile, to restore, redeem. It's this idea of rightly ordered relationships. And rightly ordered loves is the Augustine form of thinking about this. And so there's things, when you take something and make it into an idol, you love it too much. And sometimes you love things that you should love more, not enough. And the phone can really help disorder those loves. It can help us prioritize the things that we shouldn't be prioritizing. And it's totally normal to be in that situation and to say, hey, this thing is supposed to connect us, but yet we don't have just that level of deep connection that our soul is longing for. And that's why it takes guts for a school to say no phones at school, especially in a world of school shootings, in a world of volleyball practice changing, in a world where all these, like, you want to be able to get a hold of your kid, right? And from them to say, no, we want to emphasize face-to-face connection and a great learning environment here. Okay, so the first conversation is the gospel conversation. This phone is not neutral. It's a part of a very good world that has become upside down, that as a family we get to be a part of redeeming and restoring and reconciling. That's the conversation. So as a parent, if you are frequently complaining about a phone, catch yourself and say, hey, maybe I should back up and start off by celebrating the cultural artifact first. Let's celebrate what's good about it first. Then we can mourn what's missing with it. And then we can say, how can we as a family be a part of fixing it? So, see, again, that conversation changes it as opposed to this stupid phone, like, or I'm not going to get you one, or this kind of power play in that situation. All right, the next conversation is a very pragmatic one. It's the question of what is this for? What is its purpose? The Bible likes to talk about this word, I love. It's right here. It's chokmah. It's wisdom. Wisdom goes beyond knowledge. It means doing the right thing the right way at the right time with the right attitude, with the right tone. It's knowing how to interact in God's world in a pragmatic way that gets results for what's best, for the best results that you can get, the most righteous results. The question of what is it for is really a challenge when it comes to a phone, because it's like, oh, it's for communication. And so this is a Peter Thiel quote. He's talking about Twitter, now called X. The future promised us flying cars. Instead, we got 140 characters. Or now it's 280 characters. I don't actually. Can you just post for however long you want on X? I don't know. Now that Elon bought it. So it's this idea of like, oh, we're supposed to be able to connect, but like, oh, is that what that's really for? If you look here in Scripture, I love this verse about the power of the tongue. It says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. And so Axis makes a lot of videos. By the way, I have 3 Axis staff members with me today. I have Devin, Stephanie, and Rachel. So everyone say hi. So I'm so grateful for each of your unique contributions at Axis. So we made a video at Axis at 7 minutes. It's about Mean Girls. Remember there was an old Mean Girls and now there's a new Mean Girls? And how you bully and how you gossip has completely changed. To where it's like, meet me at the flagpole and beat you up. I'm going to take your lunch money. Now it's like, I'm going to call you a racist on social media where you can't see it. Or, and so in this, it's funny, but it also creates a great conversation between you and your kid about, wow, that's just really different. It's really different, and that sounds really hard. And how you, just the way you can just like send a rumor out about somebody and totally destroy their character, or take a picture without them, or post a picture of them that's unflattering. There's so many areas that we need wisdom. So the question of like, what is it for with the phone is like, is the phone designed to gossip? No. Can it be used for that? Yeah. Are there certain ways that we become hooked with it? So here's your next question. As you think about yourself, do you do a good job of self-limiting your phone use? 3, 2, 1, go. Our phone use. Because of what you said, it's designed to make us want it, to long for it. It's designed around dopamine, the pleasure chemical. And so here's an interview with Anderson Cooper where he's interviewing some of the dopamine triggers that are built into social media.
Studied neuroscience before co-founding Dopamine Labs.
A computer programmer who now understands how the brain works knows how to write code that will get the brain to do certain things.
Because it's a proven way to keep you searching longer.
You don't pay for Facebook. Advertisers pay for Facebook. You get to use it for free because your eyeballs are what's being sold there. So
That's an interesting way to look at it, that you're not the customer for Facebook.
You're not the customer. You don't sign a check to Facebook, but Coca-Cola does.
On Instagram, he told us sometimes those likes come in a sudden rush.
There's holding some of them back for you to let you know later in a big burst. Like, hey, here's the 30 likes we didn't mention from a little while ago.
So all of a sudden you get a big burst of likes.
Yeah, but why that moment? There's some algorithm somewhere that predicted, hey, for this user right now, who's experimental subject 79B3 and experiment 231, we think we can see an improvement in his behavior if you give it to him this bit in this burst instead of that burst.
I hope you're feeling compassion for yourself and for your kids. And also, you might be feeling a little bit of fear. So that's where this question comes up: when should you get your kid a phone? And so people are like, I'm never getting my kid a phone. It's like, oh, do you really want your kid to be like, I can't wait till I leave home because I'm going to do whatever I want. My mom's been holding this back. My dad's been holding this back. I can't wait because I'm going to do whatever I want. And just all of a sudden, it's like, here's infinite freedom. Or maybe you feel shame because you got your kid a phone earlier than you wish you did. Or maybe grandma bought an iPad and all of a sudden your kid's like an iPad kid and addicted to that. So I will tell you the answer to this question, and the question is, it's a wrong question. It assumes two things that are false. The first thing that it assumes that your kid doesn't already have access to a phone. Your kid is only as safe as your friend's phone. There you go. That's the scariest statement I'll make today. And so we have to teach them wisdom in the first place. The second thing, though, is it assumes that when you get your kid a phone that you have to just be like, here's an iPhone, it's in a box, it's wrapped in cellophane, you can have whatever you want, and they go from 0 to 1. You can limit so many different things with the phone. So the first phone is an important one. Again, there's so many different ways to do this as a family, to have the conversation. The most important thing is to talk about it, but when should you get your kid a phone? Oh, we don't need to play the timpani on this one. So when you get your kid a phone, it's more of a conversation of like, look, they're already going to have access to it through their friends. So you want to have those conversations. And then when you do get them a phone, help them understand how to get there. And so this brings up the third conversation, which is driver's ed. So when should you get your kid a phone? It's this idea of driver's ed. I'll tell you where you were the morning of your 16th birthday. Where were you? You were at that illustrious establishment known as the DMV. Because what did a car represent for you?
What's it represent?
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah, freedom. You can date, you can work, you can go to baseball practice, you can, like you're 16. And now kids are 16 and they're like, I'm not interested in a car. It's because the phone is the new driver's license, which is so intense to think about. That's how powerful it is. But just like when you were 16 years old, your dad wasn't like, here's the keys to the truck. Good luck. No, you had to it was like 50 hours of driving with your parent, driving at night, driving during the day, taking a test, because you could kill yourself or kill someone else with this thing. And so the phone has an equal amount of power for destruction or for good. And so the idea, and this is what we have, this is what you, especially before you get your kid a phone, or if you're in that process or you want to rethink it, we have the Everything Smartphone Toolkit for free at Axis. I'm going to tell you the most important thing, and this is pretty strong for me to make this strong of a statement. I think the most important thing you can do with your kid and the phone that they have is to just write something out about what your family believes. And it's going to feel awkward, and it's not like you're not writing it in blood, but just to get on the same page for a few things. And then there are 8 different domains for the phone. I wish it was more simple. If it was, I would have made it 7 or 6. But there are 8 different areas to talk with your kid about. 4 of them are completely philosophical and analog, and 4 of them are technical. So, and to just write down something and say, we're going to change this, and there's grace in our family. But the 4 things are, What are our non-negotiables? Okay, this is like, is it wrong to drive and text? Is pornography wrong? Is sexting wrong? And so we outlined some of those things. You would be surprised at the different mindset your kid might have than you about multiple of these different areas. So it's kind of good just to kind of get those out there, and some of them are going to change anyway, but just to get those out there. Hey, these are just some things that this is our family's philosophy or ethics. Second one is easier, but it's money. Who pays for it? Who pays for the one-time cost? Who pays for the monthly cost? Who pays for it when it breaks? Who pays for the case around it? The third one is location. Can you have the phone in your bedroom? Can you have your phone in the bathroom? Can you have your phone at school? Can you have your phone at church? The next one is time. Can you have your phone on 24 hours a day? How fast do you want them to respond when you text them? So those are all just like philosophical. They're philosophical about what your family values and what you care about. And I'd say bringing them in on that conversation is really important. Then the other four, internet, app store, texting, and social media, are all technical. I recommend a kid's first phone have none of those. And you can actually, when phones first came out like 18 years ago, it was just fair game for the first decade. But now you can give them a phone without a browser on it and say, we want to get you to a point where you can have that browser. We do, okay? And we're gonna get you there, but I want to give you some wisdom around how to think about that. The App Store, if you keep the App Store on, they'll just download a different browser. So texting, you can limit texting. Some of these new phones limit texting. When you get your daughter a phone, someone is going to send her a dick pic. It's just going to happen. So, and it might happen within the first week or the first 6 months. So if you can get out ahead of that one and say, hey, like, this is gonna happen. You might see it. Apple has some like safeguards around it, but again, it's the option is not to be like, well, you're just never going to drive. We're never going to give you a car. It's like, okay, we're gonna teach you how to handle this, and you can come to me to tell me about this. And then social media, I think it's great to start off with one social media, and because there's just a lot of nuance with that. And Access has a parent's guide to TikTok, or a parent's guide to Instagram, or a parent's guide to Facebook. I'm sure we had one of those at one point. Okay, you got that? And just to put something sloppy in writing about this, saying this is what we're going to work through, and that's what the Everything Smartphone Toolkit will help you with. There's a website called Protect Young Eyes. It'll walk you through the 27 steps to set up your kid's phone. And Access doesn't want to do this, and they do it already, so we just defer to them. It'll tell you everything. And there's some phones, like the Pinwheel phone, when you get that phone out of the box, you have to go add the ability to go see all the nasty parts of humanity on a phone. So that you kind of start from that, but your kid's going to hate it unless they're littler, like 11 or 12. They'll be okay with it. They'll just be happy to have anything because they feel left out. But if you start off by giving them an iPhone, it's just set up, ready to go. Like, it is ready to go. And so you have to be like, all right, I got to spend like 3 hours like trying to figure out what to do. And then every time they offer an update on Apple, it resets the whole thing. You have to go do it again. There was a mom, North Carolina. Her kid was like, she was like putting her makeup on. Her kid like walked up, and she could just like read this kid. And she just knew, oh, something's wrong with his spirit. She's like, what's going on? He's like, I just saw something on the internet. It's like, what did you see? I saw a man murdering puppies with a hammer. It's like, what's on the and she's like, baby. And she holds them and they cry, and it was just like, ugh. And then the mom slowly just said, hey, I need your help. I don't know how to set up all this stuff on your phone and your sibling's phone. We got to work on this together because there's just horrible things that are out there. And again, phones are very good, but cursed. How can we redeem them as a family? And so there's going to be some things that you want to have that come to me. Come talk to me about it. And so again, I mentioned there's a lot of phones on the left, but your kid, so I think a great start could be a Pinwheel phone or an Apple Watch, but at some point they're probably going to get an iPhone. And so you just want to set it up. And there's some of these on the side that help. And we talk about this in the Everything Smartphone Toolkit. A big idea with this is playing soccer by a cliff without a fence is terrifying. But if you play soccer with a fence by a cliff, then it's fun. And so that's what boundaries are for. They're for safety, security, and wisdom. That's why you're like, hey, some point I want you to have complete autonomy with this phone in our household. But you got to show me that you have the wisdom for that. And so for you, by the way, I'll send you guys all the slides for this. Would that be nice? Would you like that? So I'll get it to Katie, and Katie will get it to you. And it's hard, and that's why you're in a community together. And when your kids are like, well, all the other kids are getting the phones, you can say, well, this other family's not. And so that's the beauty of being in a sweet Christian community like this, where different people are going to be on different tracks with their kids at different times. And, okay, so gospel, what is it for, driver's ed? Let's land the plane on this one, this idea of trust. And so the idea of trust is like, you can try to build the best wall, and your kid will dig a hole under it. They'll blow a hole through it. They'll get a ladder and go over it. They'll get because you did, right? Because I did. And guess what? A law doesn't solve the problem of our hearts. And so it's that building into the community for that. So this brings me up to the final discussion. And this is a good one. It's a good trick question said to me by a high school student themselves when they were fighting with their mom about their smartphone. She said, David, the stricter the parent, the sneakier the child, the sneakier the teenager. Is that true or false? Turn to your neighbor and talk about it. Raise your hand if you said false. Raise your hand if you said trick question. Okay, why'd you say false?
It depends on your definition of strict, but really all you're doing when being strict is identifying the things that are in the heart. If you're not strict, you're just not seeing the same things.
Nailed it. So that gets to the heart of the matter. It's like, what is, like, it is the definition of like stricter versus sneakier, and what does that mean? It assumes the fact that you're against each other. It assumes that you're adversaries. It assumes that there's some kind of war going on here and you're not on the same team. So when she said that, I was like, this is why I love high school students. They're so smart. I have no clue what the answer is for that, but it felt like a really good riddle. So I started asking like the older, wiser people in my life what the answer was, and Grandpa Bob had the answer. And you know how he had the answer? He answered my question with a question. So he went Jesus on me for that one. So he said this. He said, David, you have to ask yourself this question. Are you raising a sin concealer, or are you raising a sin confessor? Are you raising a sin concealer, or are you raising a sin confessor? And how do you know the difference? The difference is, do you model confession to your own kids? And so that rupture and repair, that's why I'm saying it's important to write stuff down about smartphones, but there's a big clause in there about grace. And like, hey, we're in this together and we're just trying to figure it out. We want to flourish as a family. We want to be healthy as a family. Another thing that you can say, and I recommend starting saying this today. Say this to your kid. Say, you can tell me anything. You can tell me anything. You can tell me anything. And then, so that's what you're trying to say. Don't go to Google first. Come to me. Don't go to TikTok first. Come to me because you can tell me anything. I'm safe. I care for you. However, once you do that, you then have to do the next step, which is to practice your I'm not shocked face. Because they tell you something and then you lose it. And they're like, well, just kidding. I can't come to you. So let me go over here. So tell your kids, and actually, you got to ask yourself, could you do that with your own parents? Because, we kind of inherit what we get from our own parents. So helping your kids, this is from Alcoholics Anonymous, but you're only as sick as your secrets. We're in this together. We're in this as a family together. You can tell me anything. So, hey, 4 big conversations. How is it good? How is it messed up? And how do we redeem it as a family? That's the gospel. It's not a neutral thing. The second one, what is it for? Okay, it's for connection, or it's for this or that or the other. But why are we getting the opposite result of that? The third one is driver's ed. Is like, hey, it's incremental. We're on a journey of trust with the destination of independence. I want you to have this. I want you to love it. I want you to self-regulate with it. Like, we got to figure this one out. So I'm going to start it off and give you more as you've earned it. And then the last one is like, hey, I love you. You can tell me anything. I'm here for you. Weird stuff's going to happen. New phone updates are going to happen. New apps are going to happen. I need your help. Let's be in this together and have that trust relationship. All right, question for you guys. Did you guys catch what the awareness test was? I did something unusual in this presentation? Yes. It's all black and white. It's also a very black and white screen, but this entire presentation. And so the whole, way to go, proud of you. I designed this thing entirely black and white to represent how phones, they can only take us to a certain level of depth with our relationship. And so we just need to be with each other sometimes. We need to see faces and facial expressions and have relationships that aren't just completely asynchronous. And so there's just greater depth that's out there. And so that's the argument of the greater depth. And I will tell you, that story earlier of the young lady who said she's only had one real conversation with her dad. She then said the statement again. She says, I've only had one real conversation with my dad, and we've never stopped having that one conversation. So as parents, you get to have one conversation with your kid that lasts a lifetime. It's going to be a 50 to 60 year Deuteronomy 6 conversation. And unfortunately, the phone is going to be a big part of that. I mean, hey, I just voted the other day with my daughter, and we talked about everything that we believed. Our Colorado ballots were insane. You know, it was like marijuana and cops and voting and, it's gun control. And it was just like, and that's part of the one conversation. We just had a lot of the conversations all at once. This phone is going to provoke a lot of those conversations. And so this idea of only one real conversation is only one real conversation, but you're never going to stop having it. And you're never going to be, there's no one who's going to be more influential than you in the life of your kid. And I'm going to end with a really sweetheart clip, and then we'll be done. Because I see that we got a lot of moms in the room. And so this is a really great, and we'll see that's blue, so it's barely got color in it. So Durant was the MVP for the NBA for the Oklahoma City Thunder a long time ago. And Kevin Durant. And so when he was giving a speech, he thanked a lot of people. And he thanks God and his teammates. So he took his speech and chopped it up. And I want you to hear who he's thanking in this video.
Thank God for changing my life. Hurt, Nick, Tom Walker, Serge, Jeremy Perry, Andre, Steven, Reggie, Big Kiwi, Grant, Russ, Mr. Bennett, Sam Presti, Troy Weaver, my beautiful fans, my brother Tony, Dad, my little brother Avon, Cliff, Charlie, Vernon, Tay, Randy, Ryan, my grandma, and last, my mom. We wasn't supposed to be here. You made us believe. You kept us off the street, put clothes on our backs, food on the table. When you didn't eat, you made sure we ate. You went to sleep hungry. You sacrificed for us. You the real MVP. Just like to thank God again. He's the first and the last, Alpha and Omega. I thank you for saving my life.
To the moms of the room. And dads, you are awesome too. So we do our best. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sending your kids to this awesome school. You're going to have one conversation with your kid that lasts a lifetime, and there's going to be a lot of little conversations about the phone with this. If this school can serve you, they want to. If Access can serve you, we are here for you. We're in your corner. We are your research assistant to help you understand the dynamics there. Katie, it's all yours.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.